He is full stack developer in Flowing. He is JavaScript and TypeScript lover. And in his free time, he loves to trail running in Dolomiti. And he's presenting his talk, how to scale up your Angular project like a pro. So thank you very much, Luca, for being here.
Hello to everybody, and welcome to this talk. Today I speak about how to scale up your Angular project like a pro. So the agenda of these 30 minutes are that, what is an X, about the tooling, how it works, visualize dependency graph, a short demo, and a conclusion. Before starting, let me introduce myself. I'm Luca Del Puppo. I'm a full stack developer at Flowing. We are a Claranet Italian company, and we are hiring. So if you are interested in our website, you can find our open position. These are my contacts, and if you want to chat with me, they are open and you are welcome. So let's start. Who doesn't know an X in this room? Welcome on your first onboarding day. Okay, so what is an X? If you open the official website of the Annex, there is this definition. Annex is a smart, fast, and extensible build system built by Norval. In a nutshell, Annex is a CLI, and if you know Angular CLI is the father of Annex. But nowadays, for me, they are two different tools. And today we understand why. Which are its best feature? The first one, Annex is a very good task runner, so it's able to run your build, your test, your lint command, but it's also able to cache the result of your task. So it's able to improve your building and testing time. Another important feature is Annex is able to understand what is changed in your code base. So it's able to rebuild and retest only the affected code by the change. So you can prevent a waste of time during the build or the test. The last one is the dependency graph. This is the cherry on top for me. And it's a web application where we can visualize the status of our workspace. So we can check the library and we can understand how one is a relation to each other. But who can run with an X? Today is the Angular day, so it goes without saying that an X work with Angular. But an X work with also web component like vanilla JavaScript, a stranger framework with the blue logo, Next.js, and if you love the backend ecosystem, also with Node, Express, Fastify, and JS. They are only the official plugin built and maintained by the NX team. But there are also different kind of plugin maintained by the community. For instance, you can work with NX also with the .NET framework or the PHP language. Okay, let's move on. Tooling, the first impact. If you are a good team, probably you want to write unit test or end-to-end test and integration test. NX out of the box expose the configuration for Jest, Storybooks, and Cypress. You don't have to set up this kind of tool, but you just install a simple package and you are ready to write your testing. The same is for the code styling. So ESLint and Prettier are set up out of the box. So maybe if you want to change some rule or if you want to edit or add or remove, you can do that without any problem, but you don't have to spend time to set up this tool. And you are ready for write your feature. The last one is an extension. An X console is an extension for Visual Studio Code and WebStorm. This extension is very helpful because improve your developer experience. And if you hate to work with the terminal, you can interact with the NX CLI using this simple UI interface. But now it's time to see how it works. In NX, there are three main actors. The first one is the application, the second one, the library, and the last one, the tools, generator and executor. Let's start from the first one, application. Application in NX are the glue of our library. So we can use the application to link together our library. So the business logic is not inside of the application, but application make alive our library. We have two kind of application in NX. Real application, so application built and created using a framework like Angular or another framework, and end-to-end application. End-to-end application are used to test your real application. The relation between end-to-end application and real application in the common way is one-to-one, but if your team doesn't write an end-to-end application, you can create only the real application without the end-to-end application. So if you want to try to move your first feet with NX, in the YouTube channel of NX, there are two great content built by Yuri. Thank you, Yuri. And you can understand how to migrate from an application built using an Angular CLI and migrate that to NX. The first one is very short because in 100 seconds, Yuri explained how to move from a single Angular CLI app to NX. It's a command and it's very, very short. The second one is a bit more tricky because you can understand how to move different Angular CLI application in a single NX monorepo. Okay, it's time to library. Library in NX are the container of your business logic or an utilities. You can see the library as the container of a specific boundaries. It's important to keep in mind in NX library are not npm packages. So maybe one library could become an npm package, but inside of npm is only a container. Library in NX can be of three types: workspace library, buildable library, and publishable library. The first one, workspace library, are the simplest, and it's very simple because this kind of library can be linked or testing in a common way. So this kind of library can't be built and can produce an artifact. So NX is not able to cache this kind of library. But is very common if you have a monorepo, use a workspace library to share the data transfer object between the backend ecosystem and the front-end ecosystem. The second one is the buildable library. Buildable library are a workspace library, but with the build target. So we can this kind of library can produce an artifact. NX is able to cache the result and improve the building time and the testing time if you want. The last one is the publishable library. Publishable library are buildable library, but with the publish target. So we can publish this kind of library in a registry like npm or GitHub registry, both public and private. A simple rule to keep in mind if you want to work with NX is that your workspace must have around 20% of the code inside of the application and around 80% of the code inside of the library. Because if you split in the right way your code base, you get the best benefit of NX and probably you improve the waste time during your daily work. A simple tip, if you want, after you have understand NX's work and you try to move from Angular CLI to NX, you can try to split your Angular modules in library. And if you have to pay attention, because if you create the problem of a circular dependency in your modules, you have some mistake during the migration. So to prevent that, there is a very good post blog in the NX in the NX blog, where they describe how to refactor our code base, and then we can move our Angular modules in library. The last one is the tool. Tool can be generator or executor. Generator are used to create something like a library or application. So if you want to create your custom library in NX, you can create a generator, or also you can extend the existing generator. For instance, if you want to extend the NX library, you can do that without any problem. Executor are used to create custom tags. If, for instance, if you want to create your custom build, you can use executor. But it's also common to use executor to upgrade your code base. For instance, maybe you want to move from Moment.js to the DataFNS. You can write an executor that scan your code, find where you use the Moment.js library, and refactor your code in the right way. So you can automate your flow of the migration. The cherry on top, visualize dependency. For me, this is the best feature in NX. So if you run NX graph, NX start a web application in your browser, and you can visualize the status of your workspace. So you can see the library and the application, and understand how they are linked one to each other. NX is also able to highlight the affected library and application by your changes. So if you are building a new feature, NX is able to understand which are the library affected by your code. So in this case, I changed the UI library, and NX understand that e-commerce end-to-end application and e-commerce application are affected by the changes. And for me, this tool is very common to monitoring the structure of the code base. Okay. Probably if you have heard about NX before that talk, you associate NX to the monorepo style, I suppose. Yes, it's true, because NX is built to handle monorepo, and it's work very nice for do that. But if you want to work with a simple project, you can use NX without any problem, and you get all the benefit of using NX in a single project. And in the future, if your project growing up, you are able to change your monolithic monolithic architecture in a micro front-end architecture if you want. But for that, there is I suppose there is a good talk later, so I leave the speech for Yuri. Okay, my demo. The demo is very easy. So this is my beautiful e-commerce application. There is 3 pages, and every page is an Angular component. Every page is in a library. there is two kind of library. Home and cart library are workspace library, and the product library are a buildable library. So this is my beautiful application. So now it's time to go to the code. Okay, it's okay for all the code, or okay. Okay. This is the structure of a work in an Excel workspace. There is an app folder for the application, a libs folder for the library, and the tools folder for the tools. Very simple. In this example, there are two applications. An e-commerce application built using Angular, and an e-commerce end-to-end application built using Cypress. The code inside of the application is very simple. If you know Angular, I don't have to spend time to show what is inside. But to understand how it works, we can see the route model. Inside of the route model, there is three routes: the home, the cart, and the product. And every route is loaded using the lazy load. The lazy load load a library, and if you see this simple code, you can understand how it works. So if you know Angular, it's very simple. But now I want to leave you some key concept in Annex. The first one is how the Annex work. If you work with the library, Annex has two key files. So the first one is the index.txt file. This file is very important because it's the door of your library. So if you expose the functionality inside of this file, you are able to use this functionality outside of your library. But if you don't expose, the functionality is private inside of the library. The other one file is the project.json file. This is a file used by Annex to understand what is possible to do in that library. So the target are the command, and in this case, we can Annex is able to run the build, run the test, and run the lint. And every target has its configuration. It's very simple. But how it works? So if I go in my terminal and I run npx annex affected target build, Annex try to build our workspace, but he doesn't do anything because there aren't changes in the workspace, and Annex is able to understand that it's not changed in your code, so it's not is nothing to build or to test. But if, for instance, I change the product component, adding the plus plus, and try to run again the affected command, Annex this time build two artifacts, one for the product, and one for the e-commerce application. If you take a look at the utilities format is a buildable library used inside of the product library, and Annex didn't rebuild this library because it's not changed, and it keep the result from its local cache. This is very helpful because it's able to improve your build time in this case. The same is for the test target. So if I run the test target, Annex try to test all the changes, in this case, product and e-commerce application. But if I run again the nx affected command, nx in this case keep all the result from the cache because it's able to understand that it's no changes from the last build, and so it's not required to rebuild our code. This is very helpful because if you work every day with a team with many features, you are able to rebuild and retest only the affected code in your feature, not all the code of your code base. The last example is about the graph. So if you run npx nx affected graph, okay, nx start a web application in your browser. Inside of this application, nx show the status of your workspace. In this case, if you press the show all project, nx show the status of my application in this case. And we can see a tree, and every node in the tree is a library or an application. We can also see how the application and the library are linked one to each other. Another important feature, if you use nx, nx is able to understand to highlight the library or the application affected by the code, and nx use this information in the affected command that we have saw before. Okay, and if you want to play with the UI, it's very simple. You can we can click the module and see the reference from one module to each other. You can also filter the tree by the affected project. Okay, that's all from my demo, and time to back to the slide. Okay, conclusion. They are my conclusion, but I hope you really enjoy that. Pros and cons. So if you start to work with nx, for me, the extensibility and the configurability of nx is a killer feature, because you are able to use the standard plugin built by the normal team, or you are also able to create your custom flow. For instance, if you want to create your flow, you have to create your custom generator, or you can create your custom executor. And so you are flexible to use a different structure of your code base. nx is also, for me, important because help me and the team to have more control of the structure of our code base. Because if you use nx in the right way, you split your code base in library in library, and you get all the benefit by the nx tool. If you love monorepo, nx is the right way for me, because it's very fast, and every day the team create a new feature and improve something like the build or the test. And the dependency graph and the build on and the test only the affected change, for me, is the cherry on top, because you have to spend time to retest code doesn't change it. Unfortunately, if you want to move to nx, you have to study and understand how it works. So it's not rocket science, okay? But you have to understand what it do for us. And if you want to create your custom flow, probably you have to create your custom generator and your custom executor, and you have to write some pieces of code. Okay, so if you want to stay update or learn more about NX, you can find a lot of posts in the blog, in the official blog of NX, and there are different kind of posts from beginner to advanced. There are also a DevTO account and a beautiful YouTube channel where Yuri every week publish awesome content. So clap for Yuri. And there is also a Slack channel where you can ask something or you can respond if you want to chat with the community. There is also a book on building by Lars, and if you want to stay updated with NX, follow Yuri, Jeff Cross, and Victor on Twitter, because they post every day fantastic tweet. So that's all, and I hope you have enjoyed this talk. I thank you very much to Bruce for the opportunity, and thank you very much to Flowing for the support, and thank you very much to you for hearing me. And if you have any feedback for me, you are welcome. I'm here all the day, and they are my contact. And if you have any feedback for the group, they are welcome, because he want their feedback for improve this event and to get your best day for the other event.
Thank you very much, Luca.
And Q&A time.
Thank you. You can rate talks on Join.in, so just go on join.in and talk to our speaker. It will be really helpful. And if you have, and there are any questions, yes?
So it's a very vertical question, so I don't mind if you don't reply to me. I was curious about the executors of NX. So I wanted to know which kind of tools does NX give to me to empower me writing that. So your example was I want to migrate from Moment to another library, let's say. So there are various levels in which you can do that, right? So you can work at the AST level, or you can use regular expressions, or you can. So what does it give to me?
Okay, an NX doesn't expose you a feature for do that, but you can use a library outside. I know there is a Facebook library to refactor in automatic way your code, but NX expose only the way to run a task. You have to use an external library to upgrade your code in this way. In this case. For instance, executor are very. You can use executor for do everywhere. For instance, in a project, I use executor to create in my project the .n file. So I download the value from the AWS parameter store. So I'm able to replicate the situation in my machine and also in the CI stage. Okay.
Yes, the question is if you have a large application like based on let's say Angular 8, is it suitable to start migrate? Is it painful to migrate to NX, or is it better to migrate from Angular 8 to next versions and then maybe after with NX?
Okay, I ask the help from the folk. Yuri, can you help me? I suppose I prefer maybe to move the application from the last version of Angular and then move the application to NX, because probably the tools are better in the new version. I hope also Yuri join my question. So it's this is the way, I suppose.
We have been using NX for a while in our project, and when we had to create libraries, there was a moment where we had to design the structure, and we found that in the documentation that there are like 3 or 4 type of libraries, like core, utils, UI, but we still have some doubts on how we can actually structure our libraries. I'm not talking about the feature libraries because they are pretty clear. I'm talking about things that are used also by libraries and by applications. For example, a button. Should I create a library for a button or a library like UI kit with the button module? And
Okay.
of course, this is a simple example, but just to give you an idea, if you have some suggestions. Thank you.
Okay. Good question. The response for me is depends. But probably it's better to create a library. Maybe if you want a UI kit, it's better to create a library with all the UI kit, or and maybe if you want, you can use the second entry point to split the library. But I use in a project I prefer to use a library with all the UI kit inside, because for me is too easy to do the onboarding of a new developer, for instance. But it's depend of your company and by the project sometimes.
Awesome talk. Thank you so much. I was curious, what's your favorite feature of NX and why?
Okay, my favorite feature is the dependency graph, because visualize the status of my project. It's fantastic. I realize what is inside of my code, and maybe I can understand if some library are too big, or there is too many relation inside of this library. And have an impact with an image is better than understand that inside of the code. And NX use this information also to improve its task, for instance, the build and the test, because he understands what is changed, and he try to rebuild and retest only the affected code by the change if you are in a feature branch.
Thank you. So basically, the approach that you are suggesting is that every library is a feature by itself,
Yes,
with pages, components, routing, and etc. More or less.
more or less. You can create also many library, but for a single boundaries. For instance, you can create a cart. There is a container for a cart, and inside of the cart you can create a small library for the UI, a small library for the data access, and a small library for the pages, for instance. So is you can have many levels of many levels of library. You don't have only one level in the structure. So the utilities is the format is inside of a subfolder, for instance.
Okay, so for example, if I have a flow like a stepper of functionality, I don't know, a cart, a feature where I have upselling, downselling, then I have something else. I could create a feature for every step, and they could be reusable for other applications.
Yes, you could. And how to split your library is your idea, but you can split your boundaries in different library without any problem. There is no rule, but it's also your imagination.
Any other question? No? So thank you very much again, Luca.
Thank you.